There we go. Hello! Are you ready for another episode of the Midday Show podcast hosted by JR Bjornson? This is my personal podcast where we talk about life, something going on in the news, and me just not understanding things, and also me just remembering the good old days of life. So, if you're not doing anything, just keep doing nothing and maybe grab yourself a delicious soda or coffee or tea or whatever it is you like doing. Thank you so much for being a subscriber. And if you haven't yet, listen to the podcast and maybe, just maybe, click that subscribe button. Coming up today on the podcast, we're going to talk about me not getting ASMR. And also, this person in Lethbridge, Alberta got caught. You could say he was taking tires and was not paying for it. Maybe, just maybe, he was too tired.
Welcome to the Midday Show, hosted by JR Bjornson. A stand-up comedian, YouTuber, father of 5 glorious kids. He might be a little blind, but he likes to make you smile. His goal is to help you alleviate some of the daily stress. When you invest time in his podcast, you'll be feeling a little happier. New episodes Monday to Friday, released usually by 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Broadcasting from Central Alberta, Canada. Please welcome JR Bjornson.
So, welcome to the program. What is today? Is it Tuesday already? Tuesday? Is it the 3rd already? Really? I thought yesterday was the 3rd. Oh my goodness. What is today's date?
It's Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024.
Ah, thank you, Siri. Always listening. It is the 3rd of September, 2024. And I decided to bring out the big guns. My apologies for the electrical feedback in the background. It's because we're recording off a Yeti microphone, but we're also plugged into an iPhone. So technology, I have this iMac right in front of me that I could use to broadcast the show, but everything's better when it's just on my phone. I remember when I worked in radio, I was blown away when we could do live remotes using the Skype program. Back when I worked for 104.7 in Grand Prairie, we used the Skype Connect program. So basically, we would make Skype calls to the radio station. A little robot would be at the radio station answering the Skype call, connecting us straight to the Axia board. I think it was the Axia board that we were using, just this little board with multiple channels, basically. It's a soundboard. And I remember I would be broadcasting live with these live remotes and just talking into a microphone that went into a Skype call that then went to the radio station. And then we used to use a service called Log Me In, which with Log Me In, you were able to control the radio station because you would log into the actual radio station computer. And because I needed to see what I was doing, I had to bring my own computer from home, connect that to a secondary monitor, which was a big monitor. It was about 25 inches. And then I would be able to control the radio station from wherever we were broadcasting, as long as I had enough power to power my laptop and my secondary screen. And now, as I record this podcast, the only thing that this podcast is going to go through is an audio editor. And then that editor is going to make my voice sound really good and also get rid of the background AC unit, which is just a hum, it's the best way to put it. It's a hum. And that's why I was taken back to that memory, because we've been going more smaller and smaller with the power of growing technology from a very long time, for at least the past 15 years I could remember. And I remember when I found out how the Skype Connect service worked and just being like, so as long as we have 3G service connected to a cell phone anywhere in the world, we can broadcast live from anywhere. And I remember listening to radio stations growing up in the 90s. They would still use an old school transmission where they would use a transmitter. That transmitter would be connected to their board, soundboard, whatever they're using. And it's beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing. I just love it. You know what else is beautiful? Have you heard of this thing called ASMR? ASMR is basically people eating food, people doing various things in front of a microphone. They do it by whispering also. It sends some sort of pulse feeling through your brain, through your bones, through your skin. And a lot of people actually enjoy that feeling. I didn't know really what ASMR was. Me and my wife were watching one of our favorite YouTubers right now. His name is Nathaniel Hayes. On YouTube, he is Nanobytes Incorporated. And with Nanobytes Inc., he brings us along because he lives from his car, but he glamorizes it in his own personality way where, it's very frustrating. You will hear him swear. You'll hear him be himself. It's such a unique experience watching this creator on YouTube live out of his car. And whenever he has a situation go down, it's mind-blowing. He will curse. He will be frustrated. But at the end of the video, he will figure out what's wrong and deal with it. And it does follow your classic story format like all programs do. And it's still just, it's beautiful. So why am I talking about Nanobytes? It is because the wife and I were listening to his newest vlog. Of course, I say listening because I can't see very good. My wife was watching it. In this vlog, he starts cutting a tomato. He wants to make himself a tomato avocado toast sandwich. So he's cutting this tomato, and all of a sudden, as he's cutting this tomato with a knife, the tomato's coming out in these beautiful slices. I can only imagine they're beautiful. Because my wife, all of a sudden, her mouth starts getting moist. Like, I'm talking wet. Like, all of a sudden, he's cutting up these glorious slices of tomato, like it's vivid tomato. And all of a sudden, I hear my wife go, which is, to me, the worst sound in the world because I was taught to eat with my mouth closed. But she's going for like 3 seconds. So it's not enough for me to get frustrated or anything. And then I hear her do the most big swallow, which is like, not like that, not with a voice, but the fact that I could hear her swallowing and salivating. This could be taken wrong out of context. So hopefully you're here listening from the beginning and not just scrolling through the podcast, because that would be weird. I look at her and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And she said, that tomato looks really, really good. And then all of a sudden we get to the portion of the video where Nathaniel ends up stirring up avocado. He opens it, takes it out, and starts stirring it into a container, either I think it was like a metal bowl or something. And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I think I understand. I think I know what's going on here. My wife, made a connection with the tomatoes because my wife and my daughter, they both love tomatoes. If we ever got sponsored by a tomato company, you better believe I would bite it immediately. They love tomatoes, so I would do it just for their benefit. I don't think I don't like tomatoes. Tomatoes are all right. I don't have anything I'm not for or against them. If they're there, maybe I'll have a slice, but I'm not going to go out of my way to eat a tomato, So I realized, I'm like, oh, this might be ASMR type of vibes, because with the ASMR, my wife was connecting with that tomato on a more personal flavor level. She saw the tomato being cut up and she knew the avocado was going to come next. And all of a sudden, she starts salivating. And that, I think I finally understand what ASMR actually is because of the cutting of the tomato and then my wife getting excited. Like, I always thought ASMR also was just pure audio. So what I mean is, like, here, I got this, in my hand, I am holding an old school flip phone. It's called a Kibo, which on one side, it's got your basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers, and then a little screen. But you can open the Kibo, which I'll try to open it in front of the mic. We'll see here. There you go. And then it's got a full keyboard inside this Kibo. And maybe if we're doing a YouTube video about this later, like maybe I'll flash some images if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, because we don't actually do video. I just do a still image for the podcast. It's a lot easier for me to edit. Maybe one day if I get enough money and this thing blows up, I'll set up a whole station of like cameras and stuff. But here is me pushing the buttons on this Kibo in front of the mic. So here, let's see if this works. See, those are just multiple little buttons, your classic A, S, D, F, your home row. And that's what it sounds like when I close the phone. Listen. So I don't know how that's going to come through, because once we do the editing of the podcast, we compression and make the audio sound better. I don't know how that will come through, but only time will tell. And I finally understand ASMR. I think I do. If I'm wrong, do let me know. If you're listening to the podcast on YouTube, write it in the comments if I understand ASMR or if I'm just being very, very weird, because I think that's ASMR. Anyway, moving on to the secondary topic of our program today, the final topic. A man in Lethbridge, Alberta, was caught scamming a bunch of local businesses, claiming to purchase tires, vehicle tires. He would pre-order a lot of tires, and then the invoices he would put on a credit card. What do you know? They weren't his credit card. Thus, the scam was underway. So many businesses were affected, and I just think, was he too tired after that scam? And the fact that he's from, I think it was Montreal or Quebec, that's pretty intense. That guy decided to come down to Alberta, Canada, to scam businesses out of tires and to use fraudulent credit cards. And it was just trending on my Google News desk. So I figured, a little bit about that. If you're interested in the news article, I will see if I can link it in the description of this podcast. It might work, it might not. As always, this podcast is made possible by the amazing people over at Podcasters, Spotify for podcasters. Anyone can start a podcast. It's really cool, and I absolutely love it. Been with this company for years. Thanks to them, we get about 5,000 monthly plays, total lifetime of 5,000 plays, I should say. And my podcast is so successful. Right now, as of this recording date, we have 3 listeners. And you know what? If me and those 3 listeners went for coffee, that'd be 4 people. We could reserve a booth. So thank you for listening. And if we throw in the YouTube analytics there as well, that means we have just over 2,600 subscribers. If we all went for coffee, oh my goodness, I would have to take out a loan to rent a hall of some kind, maybe like an Elks Hall here in Canada if we all hung out. So thank you so much for subscribing to the podcast. So you know what that means. That sound means, the thank you means we're done for today. But do give us a 5-star review in wherever you get your podcast, be either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you let those awesome people know that you love this show. And also, it boosts my ego, my sexy ego. Before I get going, just a reminder, if you're in Calgary, Alberta on September 25th, I'll be doing some comedy. I'm just waiting for the poster, and you better believe I'll be promoting that in the podcast for the next few weeks, because I'm looking forward to going down to Calgary and making all them people laugh, as I do. This is JR Bjornson. Thank you so much for listening to the Midday Show. I will be back hopefully tomorrow, unless something comes up. And coming up on tomorrow's program, I'm going to tell you the time I walked to McDonald's and how I found out I was ridiculously out of shape.